Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Compelling Conversations podcast. Today, I'm joined by a very special friend, Crystal. Crystal, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. And the thing that I wanted to begin by asking you was, you have an amazing work ethic. It's really something. And I'm curious, where does that work ethic come from? And how have you been able to stretch it into other aspects of your life?
Ooh, this is such a loaded question. Let me think. Um, okay. So I'm gonna start with the first part about where does my work ethic come from? The roots of it. I would say a lot of my work ethic starts from when I was really young. I remember whenever I was a kid, like in an Asian household, they're very strict about getting good grades. So, I remember whenever I was young, sometimes I would bring home these really terrible grades, like, failing. And so, in one memory in particular, I did really bad on like a math quiz. And so then my dad, he made me draw a monster on that math quiz. And then he's taped it to a chair and we went outside and he had me like take a hose and spray that monster down. So I think at that age, I was so scared of failure. And I think to this day, I'm still very scared of failure. Um, and I know people are always like, it's okay to fail, you come back from failing, but there's been multiple instances in my life where I really struggle like internalizing that failure and then coming back from it. So I would probably say that's where my work ethic comes from. And then I know you said like how does it go to other parts of your life? Um, I guess it comes through everything. Like honestly, is my work ethic amazing? Like I don't know. Like I think I work better than some people, but trying to keep up that motivation, it's it's kind of hard. Does that make sense, Omar? Like
Yeah. I remember it is an amazing work ethic. Like I specifically remember, like I think anytime like I've sat down with you, you're always working on something. It's like, wow, that's pretty admirable.
oh.
I remember one time you said something like, "I don't want to feel useless," and that's always remained with me, not feeling useless. Where does that come from?
Oh my gosh. When do you remember like where I said that? Because I'm like, that does sound like something I would say.
I can't remember where you said it, but I know you said it.
I'm dead. Honestly, I I mean it's true. Like so there's a long time in college, I guess up until recently, where I felt like every single day of my life should be productive, whether it's studying, um, doing homework, contributing to my organization, or hanging out with my friends. Like I always wanted to be busy. And I think it got especially bad, like my sophomore, or bad's not the word, but like it definitely had some negative effects like my sophomore, junior year, because I just wanted to be busy every single day. Um, but I think it's gotten a lot better now. Like I think productivity is a really good thing. Keeping busy is a really good thing, but then yes, you have to find a balance. You have to find a healthy medium, because you can't be going 100% every single day. You also need a rest. Um, I don't know. I think I myself have trouble finding a healthy medium of like too productive and then like too chill. Because it's like sometimes I'm doing so many things. Like in the past, like my schedule used to be just like class, tutoring, organization, and then there's no me time. But then I'll take the weekends and I'll just have no drive to do any of that stuff because I'll be so like, like burnt out. Does that make sense? So something I think I need to work on is finding a healthy medium. But I respect what you said about me though. That's really nice.
No, absolutely. It's definitely something admirable. I think it's very cool. There's so many interesting things that you said, and they're inspiring so many different like thoughts and questions inside of me. One of them is that story about your dad making you draw that monster. What do you think that did for you? Like, what effect did it have on you?
For me, it was I think my initial response is that it instilled fear, like not in a good way, because
What does that mean though? Like drawing the monster, hosing it? Like, can you dissect that, please?
of course, yeah, like ooh, drawing the monster, I didn't want to do that. Like that's something I didn't want to do. I was like, this is pointless. I remember literally I was in kindergarten. I was like, this is dumb. And he was like, draw it. And so then I did. Hosing it, it's like a comparison is like defeating that monster. I think that's what he was trying to show me. Like, take your failures, like defeat them, and then don't do it again. I think that's what he was trying to do. But for me as a kid, I initially thought about it as like a fear tactic, like making me so scared of failure where I would never do it again. But I think you could take it a different direction. Like it's probably more of like a self-reflection thing instead of a fear thing, you know. I think he was trying to make me um more like become stronger from it. I think and that's actually an example that I've included in a couple of my like personal essays. If I'm writing a prompt for something about defeating failure, I'll usually open up with that story because it seems so stupid. In the moment, I was crying so much because I was so young, but now that I'm older, I realize that that incidents can go to so many things. Like the monster can be like getting like actually getting a bad grade or it can be rejection from an interview or so many other instances where you feel you failed. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really cool story. I'm glad you shared that. It's a cool one.
Thanks. That's like the first thing that came to mind when you talked about work ethic. I'm like, I think that's where it came from.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Another thing is failure. Failure, there's so much to be said about failure. And one of the things that I was talking to one of my pastor friends about was rejection and refusal and stuff. I was telling him I've been rejected for all kinds of things for all like for so many years. And you would think that over a period of time, facing so many rejections and refusals, I'd get such thick skin that anytime I get rejected or refused after that, it won't bother me. But that's not true. The truth is that I could still have thick skin, but it'll still bother me because I'm a human, you know? And it's just an ongoing process throughout life. It's never like that moment where you hit the top of the mountain and now you can relax. I'm not scared anymore. I won't be hurt anymore. It's like we're always having to grapple with that. And I feel that a lot with failure as well, where there are moments where I think I've overcome it or even like the embarrassment of it, but turns out no, you still have to face it, move
Mhm.
on.
No, I agree with everything you said, like 100%. It never gets easier. I feel like you just find different ways to cope with that failure or handle it. Um, there's this one girl I was talking to recently, and she basically applied to be an intern for our org. I'm part of the American Medical Women's Association. You can be an intern, and basically, if you're an intern, you have a chance to become an officer. So she just got rejected. And I was talking to her, and she was being so hard on herself, basically beating herself up about it over the weekend, where we sent her the rejection letter. And I don't know, it just made me look back on the times I've been rejected from organizations or interviews, which has been more than I can count on one hand, you know? So I guess my advice to her was that um it's just room to improve. It's just room to get better because it's just I think getting rejected from an interview just means that you're not right in that moment. Like you could definitely shape yourself and become better, come back again and reapply. Um and I was actually just talking about this with my friends like over the weekend. Like there's been times where I've been rejected and I felt discouraged from applying again. But I think that also opens another window for me to apply or try something elsewhere. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I love how you said that because that's a beautiful thing about failure is that at a certain point you can personalize it. So, for example, if I fail at something and someone else hears that story, it could inspire them. And like, I'll be honest, like with you, there's things that you've told me, like, oh, this didn't work out for me or that didn't work out for me. And that inspires me because I see you as someone who has like you're in an admirable position like with the way you do things. I don't know how to articulate it, but it's really cool. And it's like, wow, like Crystal was able to persevere through that. And so that gives you some level of inspiration, some level of motivation to keep going. So that's like another cool aspect of it. And
Oh,
and that part that you said, it's like it's not the right time type thing. That's really cool as well.
yeah, for sure. I think a lot of it at the end of the day, like whenever I say it's not the right time, I think at the end of the day, it might boil down to confidence is usually a huge factor. I think so freshman year, whenever I applied to like three of these leadership organizations back at my other institution, I got rejected from all three of them. And it hurt because like these leadership organizations at the school I went to, they were everything. They were like, if you get in there, you have instant friends, you have instant connections. It looks good on your resume, all these factors that I wanted to be a part of. Um, but I think a huge thing in my interviews was that I was seriously lacking confidence. Like they kind of just want to know who you are at the end of the day. And I feel like something we could also talk about are like the power of interviews because I feel like interviews are really important. But yeah, like in those interviews I felt like I was trying to be someone else. I was trying to be what they wanted me to be. But you know, you get that wrong so often, right? Like whenever you're talking to someone, and if you try to talk about things that they want to hear, you're probably going to get that wrong. You,
Yeah.
right? Like you're gonna, you think that they expect something from you, but it's never really that way.
Yeah. It's like you're following an imaginary script of some kind.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah. Could you elaborate on that? Like, what about interviews are you fascinated in? What do you want to explore about that? I'm curious.
Yeah, so the reason why I bring that up is because I feel that you know the current like system for getting a job, getting um into like graduate school, like professional school, I'm trying to think what else. Careers, just so many different careers. Like you have part of that process is an interview. And so it makes me think like how did we get here? Like how did we get to like interviews are such a huge thing of getting to know someone. It's just a short amount of time where you get to know someone, you talk, you answer questions, and there's different types of interviews. But it makes you think like interviews aren't like an entire person, but that's what the admissions people or person hiring you, that's what they use to judge you. Just those like 15 minutes of introduction, um, what's it? Like surface level or like deeper questions, and that's all they have. But usually when you get to know someone, it's over the course of days, years. So I don't know. I just thought that was I think it's interesting because um like being an officer and like getting to be from the perspective of I'm asking the interview and I'm judging people based off that interview, there's so many other things that you need to consider, you know?
Yeah. Being in both roles as someone being interviewed and as someone who is doing the interviewing, what would you say is the difference in that?
Hmm. Ooh, well, so I'm gonna start with I personally really like interviews. So I'm gonna speak from both perspectives, but I personally really like interviews. But I know that there's a lot of people that hate interviews. For me, I think I just enjoy like getting to showcase yourself in such a short amount of time. Like there's that kind of pressure of I don't know. It's kind of like a test to me, but like a fun test of getting to know people. So I guess from the interviewee perspective, like the person getting interviewed, um, I don't know. I'm always one for like I enjoy meeting new people. I kind of like just like answering people's questions. I guess like in this setting, for example, I actually enjoy it and it kind of challenges me to think under pressure and I don't know. I enjoy it. But I know, like I said, I know people hate that. Um, Maybe it's because I feel like I'm a little bit more outgoing than like some other people. And if you're more closed off, it's difficult to be successful in interviews where they want to get to know you in such a short amount of time.
Yeah,
Right.
that is really such an interesting thing, you know,
I
to
don't
know
know.
you in such a short period of time.
Exactly. They're gonna, and it's like life decisions. Like, am I gonna bring this person on my team or am I going to reject them and kind of like, get that sense of rejection that we were talking about. But I guess like from the interviewer's perspective, I like to be more well-rounded and try to think like, oh, it maybe this person was really nervous. It's really hard for me to do that because it's not that like I feel like it's instant impression versus like thinking about the situational factors. I feel like again finding the medium between the two is really hard, but I think it's necessary. Like you have to.
All the things that you've been talking about, well, I'm just going to say this because I know you as a person. You're like an empathetic person, and I imagine these experiences allow you to be that way. Is that what you would say? Or where does your empathy come from?
Oh, for sure. Oh, I like that. Yeah. I think where does my empathy come from? Probably um okay, well, first, I guess what the first thing that comes to mind is that I have met so many different people from different backgrounds. I think the fact that I went to two different institutions kind of brings me like a different mindset, a different perspective. Like I went to A&M, which is a majority white school, and I feel like I was able to find my place there, but I know that some people didn't. They had negative experiences there, whether it be with like, rejection, racism, just discrimination. But I mean, it's still a great school. Like, I don't want to talk bad, but it's like if you've been there, you would know, like, as a minority, you know that it happens. And I guess it does happen everywhere. Um, I feel like the reason why I love UH so much is because of that the diversity. You see people from so many different cultures and backgrounds and ethnicities, and I promise you a million times over that I become friends with people at UH that I never thought I'd be friends with. And I guess at both places I was able to find a home, but I think at UH, like I feel like I've met people that have made me more well-rounded, kind of opened my perspective on things. I hope that makes sense. And I hope it doesn't sound like I'm bashing one school because I promise I'm not.
No,
Like,
no, you're good. I do see what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah, I think the more people that you meet and the more like cultural competency like you can build, I
Yeah,
feel that's such a big word. I feel that would make you a more empathetic person. So
absolutely. Yeah. No, for sure. I think meeting like so many different people definitely does hold that secret. It's like you see another way of life and you're like, okay, we're all just kind of humans. It's like, all right, like everybody's got something happening.
ah,
Yeah. So, yeah. I wanted to mention that whole thing that we were talking about with getting to know a person in like such a short period of time. Um, right now I'm in Orlando and
oh,
I am 90% sure that I ran into Michael Keaton for like
huh.
2 seconds. I saw him at a Trader Joe's. He walked right past me. He looked at me. It was him. Like I'm like
Oh,
90% sure. Yeah, and so like celebrities, right? It's like there's so many people that know them, but they don't know like all those people. Isn't that like an interesting phenomenon?
oh, wait, I'm so sorry. I had to Google this Michael guy. Is he in
My
Batman?
sister had to do that too. Yeah. He was the Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Dude, no, because I'm looking at all of his like movies.
Yeah.
Okay, I totally lost your second part of your question because I
No,
was
no,
looking.
it was just like a thought that came to my mind. Like celebrities, they're known by so many people, but they don't know all those people. Isn't that an
Mm,
interesting phenomenon? And
yeah,
and speaking about that concept of knowing someone in a short period of time, like how strange is that, huh?
I know. That is weird. That is
Yeah.
weird.
And so it's fascinating that like when it comes to celebrity culture, that phenomenon exists. And then like in the rest of the world with this aspect of interviews, that also exists. It's interesting.
Mhm. Dude, I see the correlation you're making.
Yeah. It's wild. It's something to think about, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. Because I feel like I guess the fact that celebrities, their lives are so public. Their lives are so public, but then it's so not because you're only seeing them for what you said, like glimpses of time. But that just gives you like a short outlet to make these assumptions, make these, I guess, like connections, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Not always right.
You are a very outgoing person and you know a lot of people. How do you how do you know when to cut off people? I know that's a loaded question. There's so many circumstances. But like
Mm,
something I was thinking about was, for example, there's some people where I can just be so drawn to them that I'll just want to sit down next to them and just talk to them because they make me feel like me. And then those people that I know that don't make me feel like me, like I can't recognize myself in their vicinity. I just kind of, I don't know, kind of drift away from them. Has
mm,
something like that ever happened to you? Or what is it like with you when you're drawn to certain people and drift away from others?
mm. You make a very valid point. I guess for me, whenever you said that, like when do you know how to cut people off? That's an interesting question because there's been a couple instances in my life where I've had to do that. Um, I think sophomore year, I had a roommate that I was really unhappy with, and um, I guess the best way for me to cut people off, like with in that case, and then also another one which I can talk about, um, is just knowing how to set barriers, knowing how to set boundaries. Barriers, no, boundaries is the word. Knowing how to set boundaries. And for me, I guess even though it's kind of scary, I think it's easier to just be straight to the point instead of, dealing with someone that you can't tolerate. I guess for me and my former roommate, it was a values thing. Like our values didn't align, and I would agree, or the things that we believed we couldn't agree on. So it was a lot of like built up emotion. And so I guess the moment I was able to cut her off, I was able to focus on myself and be a lot happier. Um,
And I imagine that you didn't really feel yourself in that relationship with her.
100%.
Hmm.
Like, can you elaborate on what you mean by like, I couldn't feel myself? Because like, I think I know what you're thinking, but I want to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah, it's something that has recently come up in my mind. There was this one day where I disliked just about everything that happened that day.
Oh.
But there was like this one moment where I sat down next to someone and I spoke to them for literally 5 minutes. And in those 5 minutes, I felt like myself. And that's why it was my most favorite part of the day. Because it
Oh.
felt like, wow, this is true. That's what it
Mhm.
felt like. Something along those lines.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that. Yeah. I think it's like when you know kind of thing, like what you said, like being able to be yourself, even if it's just for 5 minutes. I think with that particular person, I definitely felt like I couldn't be myself. And if any time I was myself, I would get shut down for it. But recently I was able to make, well, not recently, but I guess like during my time at UH, I've been able to make friends where I can be my true authentic self and I'm not judged for it, or I guess like shut down, because that's kind of how I felt. But that's nice because like I guess for me it's like I'm thinking about like people who make me feel like myself over the course of like months. But the fact that you were able to feel that in like 5 minutes, like that really did warm my heart. That little story was you
Oh,
made me
thanks. Yeah, it warmed my heart too, honestly. I remember I went home that night. I was like, man, it's a terrible day. Then I wrote
oh,
about it and I was like, actually, that one moment, that was a great moment,
oh,
you know?
it really is the little things. Like
Yeah. And
it's
it's
not.
one of those things that, at least in this particular case, I did not see coming at all from any angle, but it just
Mhm.
happened to be there. Destiny, as it were.
Oh.
Yeah. But another thing that I was curious about is it takes courage to change paths. And yeah, it takes a lot of courage. How do you muster up that courage to change a path?
I think.
Oh, and before you continue, I'm curious about this because changing a path might be perceived as a failure, but it doesn't have to be. In fact, it could be even greater. And so that courage aspect kind of comes in, huh?
For sure. No, I was literally just about to start it with that, like perceiving as a failure.
Cool.
Because I definitely think, um, okay, so for some background for the audience, I was on the pre-med track basically the majority of my life. I was one of those people that I felt like I was destined to become a doctor. Okay, fine. I don't want to say it like that. I feel like I was destined to go to medical school. And it's not because my parents forced it upon me. It's not one of those situations because they always said like I could do whatever I want type thing. Um, but for me, I think I really wanted that patient physician interaction. I really wanted to help people, all the basic stuff. But as of recently, I changed to pre-pharmacy because I realized that medicine wasn't for me and I didn't want to go through the trials and tribulations of medical school because it is really hard. If you don't know, it's really hard. um, but it's not like it's not like I all of a sudden decided to change to pre-pharmacy and it was all good. It was definitely an overtime thing. Like there were multiple instances in my life where I kind of felt like this isn't for me, or I didn't want to like invest into something and not be happy with it. Um, so I definitely viewed it as more of a failure thing. But I think changing my mindset and then thinking like actually pre-pharmacy is not a step down, it's actually like a step in the right direction. For me, um, it definitely took time to change my perspective. An act of courage, I'm not sure. I guess maybe on the outside you could view it as that, but I guess for me personally it was like what's good for my capabilities, like what am I capable of and what do I want to invest my time to. So
Were you ever concerned about the perception of others? Or were you just like, it's a very easy and casual decision for me in that regard?
like like pertaining to the situation,
Yeah.
I usually don't. Oh my gosh, I feel like everyone says this. I usually don't care what others think of me. I think everyone says that. I think for me, I was kind of scared of what my friends would think, just because they're all pre-med. Majority of them are pre-med. Um, but at the end of the day, I knew that it was my decision, and the people whose input I cared about most were my parents, not my friends. So,
Were you
but I
ever
was
concerned about their opinion?
concerned about my parents' opinion. Um, I'm thinking. Yes. Yes. I was trying to remember because it's been a few months since I told them, but yeah, I think I was kind of scared for a bit about what they think, especially my dad, because he's like my parents are the ones who invest time for me to go to pre-med, like down that path. Like they invest so much money for me to take the MCAT, for me to take the MCAT course prior, and telling them that I was changing my mind was scary. But at the end of the day, they understood and they knew that it was a lot of investment. Um, and at the end of the day, they want me to be happy. So, yeah, I think they accepted it after some time,
Damn,
fortunately. Yeah.
that is really cool.
Yeah.
Wow. I just want to say, Crystal, like, if anyone could be a doctor, it's you. Just want to
So,
say, yeah. Just saying,
um,
sir. Yeah.
that's
But
sweet.
that's really cool. Like that is another thing I admire about you, that you were able to do that. That's like, wow. Because in my eyes, that takes courage, and I just think that's so cool. I remember I heard someone, they had said, uh everyone admires the strong, no one admires the weak. Everyone admires the brave, no one admires those that are scared. So you're one of those brave ones. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, because and
um,
that thing that you said about like everybody says, oh, like I don't care what people think. I myself have had to reflect on that because for so long that's been my mantra. Like I don't care what anyone thinks about X, Y, or Z. But then I think about it, I'm like, well, actually, maybe I do. Maybe I've just been telling myself this, but maybe I do. Not in like everything, but in certain things. And then it's like over there where you have to evaluate, do I have the courage or the perseverance, or do I know myself enough to not really care? Because I think that's part of it, right? To make like a bold decision, you have to know yourself. And
Mhm.
that I think that's what it is. When you know yourself, the perception of others doesn't matter all that much. I think that's very much what it is when I think
Mm.
about it. Yeah.
I like what you just said. I like what you just said. If you know yourself, the perception of others doesn't matter as much.
Yes.
I would agree with that. I definitely would. Like I feel that way. Like I feel like I know my capabilities. I know that like if I did try hard enough, I could go down that path, but I personally didn't want to because I feel like you're really stressed out until you get that investment. So, like in terms of being a doctor, I feel like it takes a very special person to do that. But me personally, since I knew that I didn't want to go down that path after like multiple instances, um, it didn't really matter like what other people thought at the end of the day because I made my decision on something, and so I was going to set my mind to it, you know.
That's really cool. Yeah. I'm curious, do you have an outlet for this is kind of random, but do you have an outlet for your anger?
Oh.
Yeah. I'm always curious. Yeah, yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Wait, where did you... That question is so random.
It is because I remember like I was standing the other day and I was just looking around at like all these people. Everybody's like smiling and laughing and having a good time. I'm like, damn, I really wonder what this guy's like when he's angry. You know what I mean? Like, what does he do? So I'm just curious, and it just kind of popped up in my head. So
I'm dead.
yeah,
We're just about out of time, and I'm trying to think. I feel like physically, no, I don't have an outlet for my anger. I think it's more of an internal thing. You know, like when some people get angry, they're gonna start punching the wall or, take it out
yeah,
physically. But I guess for me, I don't know. I like to talk about my frustrations actually. Like verbally, like letting it out. Like if I'm something kind of annoys me, I'll like tell my friend or tell my boyfriend. So it's kind of, I actually talked about this once with my therapist, but like letting out your frustrations, like either verbally to someone, like on paper. Like the difference with like writing it down is that whenever you write it down, you don't get that reassurance back. Like you vent it out, but you don't have someone who's telling you like, oh, it's going to be okay. But whenever you vent out your frustrations to another person, it's like reciprocal. Does that make
mm,
sense?
yeah,
So it's like whenever you tell someone else, you're going to get a little bit more satisfaction than if you just write it down. So I like to talk about my feelings
that's
whenever I'm
cool.
angry. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
curious, Crystal. This has been a really cool conversation. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you felt like you wanted to say, but you didn't get a chance to? Or something on your mind that you wanted to express?
Honestly, no, like I enjoy talking to you. Like I feel like I like what you said. Like you did say some things where I was like, "Oh, he actually thinks that about me," but I think that's just so sweet. And I'm honored that I was able to do this interview or sorry, podcast with you. It's not an
There you
interview.
go.
There we go. I was like, I'm honored that I was able to do this podcast with you. And I thought it was really interesting and eye-opening being able to talk about these things. Because these things are stuff that you don't really talk about openly. You usually internalize it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm honored to have you. You definitely like this episode definitely has its gems. So thank you for sharing that stuff. It's
Oh, because
something to
it's my
think
name.
about.
It's my name, Chris.
Yeah, Crystal, there you go. Yeah.
Lovely. Well,
Wow.
thanks, Omer. I
Well, yeah,
appreciate it.
thanks so much again, Crystal, for being here. It was
Of
awesome.
course.
And I suppose until next time, you take care, my friend.
See ya. Take care, friend.
Thanks.
Bye.